Thank you, Richard. I appreciate you inviting me out tonight. It was awesome. So let me ask you this. How many of you are new to the investing world? How many of you have never bought a property before and this is a whole new adventure for you? Awesome. Quite a few of you. That's great. And how many of you would consider yourselves to be veterans? You've done this before. You got this hands down. Fantastic. So the rest of you, I'm going to assume, are somewhere in the middle of the pack, that you've done this a couple of times, you had a feel for it, it may or may not have worked out so great, or you got the bug. Either way, whether it worked out for you or it didn't, and now you're looking at pursuing that even further, getting more education, and that's fantastic. Hopefully what I'm going to speak to you tonight on will register with all of you across the board, but mostly I'm speaking to those of you who've got the bug, you're interested in this, and you want to create as much success as quickly as possible. One of the concepts that we teach are Vince Lombardi's Rules for Success. And we teach the 6 principles that he has. And if you're interested in getting more of the tactical information on the mindset of success, I recommend that you email me and I will happily give you that report. But tonight I'm going to focus on the 6th principle. And that principle is the idea that winning is a habit. And winning is a habit isn't only pertaining to football, it also pertains to real estate. It also pertains to every area of your life. Now the way Vince worded it was, you need to learn how to enjoy the grind. And if any of you have ever seen him coach before, he was a little intense, but the gist of what he really got down to was you have to really enjoy the things that other people don't enjoy. Now when it comes to real estate investing, you may or may not have noticed that there are times when things get a little precarious. Things get a little scary. There are things that you may or may not want to deal with, whether it's the paperwork, whether it's the renters, whether it's the banks. There's some aspect of it that, just doesn't rock your world. But the truth of the matter is, in order to become successful in real estate investing, that has to rock your world. You have to learn how to enjoy that. And the question really becomes, well, how do you learn to enjoy something that you can't stand? It's a good question. So if we look at this whole concept through football, and I'm sure you'll get the analogy, that if you have, say, your defensive line and you have your offensive line and they're lined up at the line of scrimmage, if you had a defense player and he was afraid of the offensive player that was coming at him, what do you think would happen when all of a sudden they broke the line of scrimmage and the offensive line starts coming at him? It would be a disaster. He would get annihilated. He'd get balled over and everybody would laugh. Right? If he had a severe experience of fear, that little part in the back of his mind kicks in and he experiences fight, flight, or freeze. You've all heard of that, I'm sure. Now hopefully fight kicks in. That would be a good thing and very appropriate in the venue. If on the other hand flight kicks in and he starts running the other way, then he's not going to have an NFL career for very long. If freeze kicks in, okay, it's not so bad, but really, you're not going to become a professional football player doing that sort of thing. They have to overcome that fear whether they felt it or not. And I guarantee you there isn't a football player on the planet that at some point in time hasn't looked at somebody twice as big as them coming at them and gone, oh my God, what am I doing here? But they learn to overcome that fear. Now in real estate and investing, the same thing happens, and it doesn't matter whether you're buying properties or you're flipping properties, you're selling properties, or you're the renter. At some point in time, in every single deal that you have, there is essentially an offense and a defense. Now fortunately, you're not tackling each other. This is very good. You don't want any tackling in the office or any boardrooms. But fear can still be a little more subtle. It can show up in ways such as self-sabotage. It can show up in ways such as getting a little too cocky. It can show up in very negative ways that in the long run affect the way you're doing your deals. And if any of you have noticed that you've done 3 deals, and they didn't turn out so hot, I got some bad news for you. My father used to have this expression that says, once is an accident, twice is a mistake, 3 times it's a habit. And when I look at people's track record, if they have 3 losses in a row, that's a habit. And guess whose? Theirs. And they got to start looking at what is it that they're doing in order to create the results that they're getting in their lives. Now you can say, well, I can't blame myself for everything that goes wrong in my life. And yeah, you'd be right, you can. You can get away with that. But if you do question, well, what is it about me that I'm bringing into these meetings? And how might I be able to take control of that? Well, now you're in control. Now you're garnering some power that you wouldn't have before if you just said it's not my fault. Now you're starting to look out, what if the possibility of me being able to actually acquire that habit of success? What if there was a fear in me that was self-sabotaging? What if there was a fear in me that was saying stupid things that people were just turned off by and they didn't like the way it turned out? What if I quit saying those things in those meetings? Might my results change? Well, I'm going to venture they will. I'll give you some examples. As Richard was saying earlier, I had a client that came to me from Kelowna, and he used to be a real estate developer. And I say he used to be because I believe that at this point he's now retired and living in the Caribbean somewhere. That was his last plan of attack, and unfortunately I don't get a whole lot of postcards from him anymore. However, when he came to me, he was doing real estate investing, and he said, I used to have this ability to be able to go to a site and be able to feel whether or not that property was going to make money or not. And he said, something happened and I've lost that ability. Can you bring it back for me? I said, well, I don't know if I can or I can't, but I'm willing to try. And I would love to be able to use this as a testimonial if you don't mind. He said, absolutely, go right ahead if it works. So at that point in time, it was a wee bit of an experiment on my part. But we did a process that we call success therapy now, and it's basically a 5-step process that helps people to get to the root cause of what's causing their issues for them. That was at the beginning while I was still in the experimental stages of it. It's worked stellar since then, and that's all we use now. So what happened was we got to the root cause of why he had lost his ability to be able to feel the money, if you will. And what it was based on was fear. When he got married, all of a sudden now he had responsibilities. Then his wife got pregnant, much to his delight. Well, now there's even more responsibilities, and he felt a heaviness towards that as opposed to an excitement. And the more opportunities that he looked at that were kind of risky or questioning, his wife started to kind of freak out because she wasn't as comfortable with those risks as he was. So needless to say, because of his love and affection for his wife, he started to give in to that fear and give in to that questioning and started to let go of that ability. Not the real estate investing, but he let go of the ability to be able to sense the money in the properties. So much to my delight, that was pretty easy for us to reverse, and to his delight, within a 2-hour session, he left, went back to Kelowna, and had his touch back. Now the really cool part was this was around 2007. And if you remember what was going on in real estate in 2007 in Kelowna, it was pretty cool that he was one of the few developers that actually made money at that time, because he got his touch back. I've had other clients that were new to the real estate investing, and they went, okay, I'm just going to put pie in the sky. I want to have 6 real estate properties within the next 12 months. Now, for those of you who are new to this whole concept, 6 properties in 12 months can be a terrifying proposition. However, with a little bit of work with this process called success therapy, he indeed did buy those properties, rented them out, and now his children have their investment properties for when they go to university. They can choose to live in them, they can choose to sell them, they can do whatever they want with it, and he gets the return on having them for all these years. I have a ton of examples of clients like this. I have real estate investors that used to work with me during the crash in 2009. And some of my clients were the only clients who not only made money during that time, but I had clients that went from $100,000 a year income to $500,000 a year income that year, while everything else was going down. And the reason I attribute that is, one, they were stellar. Well, no, not really. They were pretty normal people like you and me, and they were afraid, and they had their fears, and they had their excitement and their enticements. But when they allowed themselves to let go of the fear of what was stopping them, they were allowing themselves to make good decisions, not self-sabotaging decisions, not buying high and selling low like everybody does when fear kicks in. Does that make sense? Okay, you see how the whole process of being able to enjoy the grind will help you to become more successful, because now you're making intelligent decisions based on logic and reason and the processes that you're going to learn from Richard and from Mike and the rest of the investment gurus that you're going to have at your disposal. It is vitally important that you know where your mindset is at. So if you're interested in working with me, I would love to have you work with me. Please come and talk to me and we'll talk to you about how that might work out. But if you are going into real estate investing, please do choose to work with someone. You'll be extremely happy you did and your profits will show. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it immensely.
Thank you very much.